Hello there. I managed to find out how to wave, so that's progress. My goal here is to show how to teach a subject from a theoretical standpoint, and then give a demonstration of the theoretical concepts, and and create a product that students would be able to experience together. So let's get started. Um, so let me see. What do we have? Landscape design. Okay. So while this is loading, so all the objects that you create and position are saved in a file, and you can bring it up whenever you want. So in this case, I'm using a presentation app here that allows you to create, not only linear presentations, but you can also have it in 3D. You can build an exhibit with it as well if you're interested to use it in a particular setting. So let me remind us what we are trying to do today. Okay, what's our plan? What's our plan that we just developed right now? I'm going to be present a topic from a theoretical standpoint. Then we are going to demonstrate a few concepts. And you will notice that, I won't be going through all the concepts because we don't have the time to make sure that the clip is fairly short. And then, we can hopefully end with, and end with an end. So many endings, and product that students can experience. Okay, so just to recap, we are in a 3D world, and we are creating, the subject matter content that we are presenting to students. I already have, placed these pictures here because since we are talking about landscape design, I thought it would be a good idea to have these pictures already available of some landscape that I kind of like. And then, we'll try to use them during our presentation. One of the things I maybe should have mentioned is how these were created. Basically, they are objects that are available in the library of the presentation app. You have text tools, image tools, that there are images that you can place, and you have all kinds of ways for displaying images. Okay, so you can have, for example, even images that you can place on their own, like this one here. Okay, so if you were to use such a display, you can do this, and if you want to add a picture to this, you can do it in a number of ways that the application detects automatically. You can type in the URL of the picture, or you can, if you have the picture in your inventory, you can just copy paste the UUID and it will appear here. And if you save it, it will stay here in the file, and you can bring it up whenever you need it. Okay, so let's look at some of the theoretical concepts now. Let me click on finish. And when you click on finish here, it kind of makes things a little bit less busy. Okay, so you won't have the HUD icons appear for all these different objects. Okay, so let's look at, if you're designing a landscape, there are a number of main ideas or principles that you can keep in mind. Okay, so the first one is simplicity and functionality. So if you're designing a landscape, whether it's in 3D, in a 3D virtual world or in the real world, you want to make sure that the environment is not so busy. Well, it depends on the context, of course, but you want to make sure that it is also functional. Okay, so you can have a very beautiful landscape, but you can't actually use it. Okay, and it's easy to explain what the principle is, but it's best to actually experience it. The functionality problem here is more from an artistic perspective, from a flow perspective, from a navigation perspective. There are other aspects to it too. I mean, if the quality of your 3D objects are not good enough, then if you have like a stone, for example, that doesn't have proper physics, or a hill that doesn't have proper physics, you won't be able to walk over the hill, without getting buried and things like that. So we are not talking about those technical aspects. We are talking more about the artistic aspect, and the more, the flow aspects, because when you place objects in a 3D world, you should be able to move from one place to the other fairly easily without getting lost, and in a very pleasant way. And if you're thinking about social interconnections between different people, between people who would be using that space, you can also design things, in such a way to encourage people to meet in certain areas, or you can create private spaces that are not, like really starkly. It's not like you're going to put a prison in a landscape, but you can create private spaces where people can decide to walk to and to sit and be in a very nice place where they won't be disturbed. So maybe you would put some benches over there and things like that. So there are lots of issues to consider if you're thinking about simplicity and functionality. Okay. The second thing, again, it's more like of a artistic standpoint. You want to look at variety and visual interest. Very broad topics. Again, for me, I am kind of biased because I like Zen gardens, and for me, for example, if I'm looking at this picture over here, you can see that these tones create visual interest. Okay, it's interesting because it stands out from its background, but not in a very nasty way. It's a nice place to rest your eyes on, so you can have these tones. And of course, you can't just place like too many stones, and it's got to have the right balance. And we'll come to the idea of balance, in a few minutes. So whenever we are going to talk about, artistic stuff, basically it's really very subjective, but there are some commonalities that usually emerge, and there are a few rules of thumb that one can follow, and that would more likely lead to environments that people might enjoy. Okay, balance is something quite interesting too, because You can achieve a scene that's very balanced by sticking to symmetry. So if you have a road and you have trees on both sides, it can look very balanced, but it might actually not be so visually interesting. So that's why these concepts require a lot of examples and a lot of immersion into the situations so that the students can really have a feeling of what balance means. Because you can demonstrate, and I think I'll do that here because I think we have enough time to demonstrate this. So let's talk about balance. And let me sign into this app here, which is the Lentiles app. And again, I don't really follow tightly scripted, plans with everything laid out step by step. So right now I'm going to create a small environment, and we'll try to see try to understand the concept of balance. Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to raise is, let me see whether this is not in land base, so I'm looking for a grid, okay, which happens to be in square tiles. All right, so I'm going to click here, and I have my little grid here. Let me build like a simple pathway, and I'm going to use, let's say concrete, okay? I'm going to place it here. That's going to, oh, that's quite big. All right, so let me resize it. And as I'm doing this, you can, immediately see that, how you can, play with these different objects. And at the same time, I'm actually demonstrating the objects themselves. So I'm selecting the square tiles, and I'm going to try to create a little path. Not too big, obviously, because we don't have that much time. And let us say I'm going to add, maybe I'm going to try and add, and this is big again, and I'm going to resize it so that it fits on this side, so you can see it's fitting perfectly. I'm going to oh, sorry. This is what we use, the themeable tiles. So I'm going to add this here, and basically, let us say we have a very simple environment with grass on both ends. Okay. So if you have, for example, a situation that's very asymmetric, let's say I have trees on one end. I mean, that's something that's really crazy that no one would probably do, but I'm just adding it over here, in case, just to make things clearer to understand. Okay. Well, these three objects here are in exactly the same orientation. Okay, so it's kind of boring. If you remember in the last clip, we had the option of randomizing their positions, their orientations, and their sizes, so that makes things a little more organic. But let's forget that. Okay, let's just look at that. Okay, we have placed the trees here, and let me say, okay, now I'm going to put some bushes on this side. Okay, let me pick Where can I find some bushes? Maybe in shrubs. All right. Let us say I'm going to put like, some bushes over here. Okay. So you can see that, just imagine, if you are trying to, let me just jump in here. Okay. And remove this because then got added accidentally here. So I'm going to click on finish so that I can walk on it. So you can see that this scene it is asymmetric from where I'm standing. We have trees on one side and bushes on the other side, and it's not. Let me switch on my AO here so that I can actually walk. All right. So you can see that there is a lack of balance, definitely. Okay. And one of the things you can do to establish balance, you can still maintain a symmetric situation. Okay. By let's say, I would move. I have to sign in first, obviously. Let's say I'm going to move one of the trees and place it here, and then one of the bushes and place it over there. So it's still okay. I should have said asymmetric. We still have an asymmetric situation, but it's kind of improving the balance a little bit. Okay, so you can achieve balance even in asymmetrical situations. Okay, but if you were in a really purely symmetric situation, you would have balance. So if I just clone this here and I place it here, a copy of this tree here, and I keep doing the same and cloning this and maybe placing it here, and if I do that, you can see that there is more balance in this situation. And if I do this similar things for the bushes, and of course I have to try at least make an effort for things not to be so identical, because then it gets really very, very uninteresting, and I don't know how to say this, but it's unnatural maybe. Okay, so now things look a little bit better. This actually went up there. We don't want it to be that high up. We want it to be on the ground. So let me fix this. I'm going to select this one and place it over here. Okay, it's not strictly symmetrical, but you can see that this scene is slightly better. Okay, and when we talk about balance, it's not only about the forms and the shapes of the trees and bushes, because those are variables that you need to think about. Now, if I'm going to use a theme changer, let me try to change the colors a little bit. So if I'm going to maybe pick an autumn scene, okay, we can try to see how we can achieve balance by using colors as well. So yes, autumnal. I don't know why I can't pronounce this word. Okay, so we have different colors here, and this also balances things out a little bit. Okay, and you can add visual interest by having, let us say, trees that have colors that stand out. So that this red, for example, is going to stand out a little bit more, and you can change the size and kind of make it more prominent. So that's one way to do this. it also creates a kind of focal point. If it's I don't know if that makes sense here, but um, so those are the kind of concepts that you can explain. Well, let me just place it on the ground here. That you can explain to your students in a very practical way as you are covering the theoretical concepts. Okay, and if you want to go a little bit crazy and add maybe another point of interest, let's say I'm going to add an archway here. Will that work? You think? No idea. Let's try it. And I'm going to rotate my 90 degrees. And I have like an archway. That looks neat. Okay, so you can see how you can, try to create things that are balanced and that looks all right. Note that we didn't even need to use randomization functions and things still look good. Well, that's interesting. Well, let's see what we can do and to make things more interesting. We can add grass, for example, because this would add how do you say that, like a different form to it would add variety to the landscape. But then it starts getting busy as well. So you have to be very careful and not add too many stuff to your landscapes. It gets busy and doesn't get it's not too pleasant. Okay. So let me click on finish here and let's go back to our theoretical section. So you can imagine, well, let me pause here and tell and ask you if you find anything that we are doing to be of any use to you, if you find it to be inspiring, or please click on the like button and subscribe to our channel. Our main goal is to try to share ideas and to really make everything that we have implemented so far, to really try to make it accessible. This effort is fully self-funded. Or if you have any questions and concerns, you can just write. That's what the comment sections are for. So just feel free to do that. Okay. So we had a chance, just coming back to what I was talking about, I think I talked a little bit about focal point and when you're talking about visual interest and symmetry and you're of course talking a little bit about sequence and repetition, okay? And when you talk about the shape of your landscape or the shape, not only the individual shapes of trees and stones and rocks, you also want to pay attention to proportion. And unity is kind of how everything holds together. Okay, so you can have a landscape, but it's very noisy and there's too many objects and people don't feel comfortable being in them. So that's something that you would want to avoid. And there are also different types of landscaping ideas and principles that coming from other cultures. Okay, for example, in Japanese, if you look at the guiding principles of a Zen garden, it's usually you would see a change in perspective. It would be, for example, what stands out to me is the asymmetry. I think in that culture there is the concept of wabi-sabi, where there is a lot of respect for things that are apparently not perfect. So there is this idea of respecting imperfections or things that change that change all the time, that are impermanent, and all these different ideas seep into pretty much everything people in that culture do in terms of what they design as art or as architecture or as landscape. And it becomes quite interesting. So if you're teaching a course in a 3D world and you want to touch on these topics, it becomes quite easy to create all these landscapes and immerse your students in, so that they would get a good idea of a good idea and feel of these different influences. And I think that would be a very good learning experience for your students. And of course, if you are a professional landscape designer, I'm not by any stretch of imagination. Whatever I know about landscaping is what I've just, spent some time reading on the web. And I don't even garden. I mean, I don't even, I have a garden, but I don't spend too much time in it. I just maybe mow the lawn, and that's about it. I'm sorry to say, but I've got other people doing, the artistic stuff. Yeah. So I think that if you're a professional landscaper, you might still find this approach useful, because imagine that you want to talk to clients about a specific design, and you have this landscaping app, and you want to use it to illustrate your thoughts, and you want to get input from them. And you can imagine, the ideation process that's going to unfold, with your client. I pretty much guarantee you that if you have an application like this one, and you're talking to your clients, and you're making the 3D garden or landscape emerge in front of their eyes and make them walk through it, they would actually have a better understanding of what you are trying to do. And they would also be in a better position to see all these different objects from different angles, and they'd be able to walk around in the garden and see and get a feel of the place. So I hope this video clip has been useful to you. Again, if you found it to be useful, inspiring, or even if you have some ideas to add, please either like, or if you have criticism, just comment. Questions, just use the comments sections. We really like feedback in any shape or form. Thanks for your attention. I really appreciate you taking the time watching this clip. Okay, see you soon.